Do you know that 95% or more of new life insurance agents fail out of the business within their first 12 months? That is absolutely the case. And in this video, I'm going to give you advice from somebody myself who's been in the business for more than 13 years about what steps you need to be successful. More importantly, what every new life insurance agent needs to know to actually have a successful life insurance career. If you haven't met me yet, my name is David Duford. I own the Dig Agency. We specialize in helping aspiring, new, and experienced agents become top producers in remote life insurance sales, mostly by specializing in the final expense space while providing free high-quality leads at no cost. As a side note, if you want to learn more about that, you can head over to davidduford.com to get more information on how our agency works and to see if what we do is a good fit for you. So I've spent some time prior to filming or prepping for this video thinking about, man, so many agents fail out of this business. What 5 things can I say, pieces of advice that can help reduce the overall failure rate and help you, specifically the viewer that's watching this, avoid the common landmines and pitfalls that kill, figuratively speaking, so many agents from being successful? So I spent some time yesterday, like I said, and I'm going to go through a list of 5, and I'm going to actually tell them to you right now, and then we're going to go through them in a more detailed way, giving you some examples, personal experiences to convey it a little bit on a deeper level with, again, the hope is you don't fail out like I did, really, in my first 12 months, and possibly never give this awesome a career a true chance. We want you to be successful and avoid failure as much as possible. So let's begin. Number one thing we're going to talk about, again, this quick list, then we'll go into detail. First thing we're going to talk about is that life insurance sales requires total commitment. We're going to talk about what that actually means. Number 2, do not do this business if you have any sort of ego issues or if you're thin-skinned. This business is brutal no matter what you sell. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. It's not easy. It might be simple, but it definitely isn't easy. So I'm going to give you some insight on how to prevent that from happening as far as thin-skinned and letting your brain get in the way of things. Number 3, snake oil is everywhere in this business. There's a lot of scams, that kind of thing. If you're unaware of this or uninitiated, I'm going to tell you what that means and why you should care. Number 4, I'm going to have you step back and really think about the risk versus reward opportunities that are out there when it comes to what you have to invest and what type of risks you have to take to potentially get the type of reward that you want. It is not clear because everybody's going to tell you it's easy and everybody's making money hand over fist, just, with one hand tied behind your back. It's not the case. So we want to make sure that you know all the facts, know all the figures, so you can determine what really is truly the best course of action to take with the minimalist amount of risk, depending on your situation. And the 5th thing we're going to talk about is that we're all here to make money and help people, of course, but truly helping people first and putting that foremost always follows, or the money always follows when you help people first and foremost, looking out in their best interest. We'll get into that mindset and why it's so important to be successful as a new life insurance agent. So let's fast forward. We're going to talk about the number 1 thing, or at least the first bullet point here. So number 1, life insurance requires total commitment. So the problem I see a lot of new agents have when they get into this business is that they don't take it seriously. A lot of people, in my estimation, end up here because it was their second or third choice. They didn't get the job that they wanted. They have nothing really to lose, so they end up here. But they don't treat it like the actual awesome opportunity it could truly be with the right setup and the right position to start with. And it's because of this, some agents don't fully commit. They kind of dip their toes figuratively in the water. In other words, they kind of treat it like, an occasional side hustle, as opposed to the last career that they ever have, and they have to give everything all into it. And the point I'm trying to make and why you should care is this. The only way to be successful at this difficult business, don't discount this. You have to be all in all the time. Even more so, and especially so, as a brand new agent to the insurance business. And let me tell you how I know that. So I started in 2011. I had a business that I failed out of personal training during the Great Recession, and I stumbled across insurance sales and final expense sales. I liked it. It sounded great. I started part-time, but I was fully committed because I knew my insurance company, my personal training company was going down the tubes. It was failing. And so I had to be all in, even though I was part-time to start with. And eventually I went full-time into insurance sales, closed down the personal training gym, and was all in. And I got success, but then I got complacent and I got egotistical. I thought that I could invent a brand new approach that nobody was doing or ever thought of to sell final expense without the painstaking requirement of knocking on doors, because we didn't really do telesales back then, and having to deal with people who just didn't buy. We call them deadbeats, right? Lo and behold, it required a financial risk that I shouldn't have taken, but I took it because my ego was higher than my rationality then. And I ended up blowing a bunch of money that I didn't have and ended up making way less sales than had I put the money into the original boring direct mail lead campaign that we originally did. And I ultimately failed out of the business because I lost my full commitment to the concepts and the fundamentals that were proven to work. And so I remember the day I quit. I had a client cancel on me when I went to call to confirm. And I looked at my bank account when I got home. I had like $95 on my bank account. I had a wife who was already angry that I was doing this job and a son. And I had no idea where the money was coming from. And I was emotionally done. You know what? When you do something in life and you just like divorce it, I was done selling final expense. I got a job elsewhere. I mean, it was the best thing that ever happened for me because I got a real job, worked for a company called Aramark selling uniform services. Well, that was terrible, working for the man and being at the mercy of promotions that were outside of my ability to control my advancement. And it gave me some much important perspective that a mid-age 20-year-old needed, 26, 27. And eventually got back into part-time, and it kind of started the whole cycle over. I was totally committed. I worked late nights, weekends for about a year, and then I fully went full-time, and I never looked back. And I'm thankful because the failure experience I've had as I've watched other people in this business, most people don't come back after failure. They're convinced of themselves that the business is not what it was supposed to be. And here's why you should care, and what's my point. You can't let yourself risk true failure. It could happen. It happens to most people. But the way that you prevent it is obviously in finding a good organization that matches your values, is transparent, is honest, and gives you an actual avenue of success. But the other side of this, probably the more important side of this, is you've got to fix this up in your head. There's a lot to be said about burning the bridges. You ever heard of that term before? Burning the bridges or burning the boats, like damn the torpedoes. I'm going all in no matter what the consequence. It's easier said than done, but there's extreme power when you decide for yourself that I am going to do this hell or high water and be successful, knowing that a lot of frustration is going to occur first. It's not a surprise. That's normal when you do anything new or you're in business. In fact, I did an interview today with Cornell, my number 2 agent in the agency. He wrote $74,000 in business in his second month with us. First time in the final expense business on a remote side. He's writing more business than all but one agent in our agency. And what he told me is the exact same thing. He is all in. He never thought about quitting. And he had spent the last couple of years bouncing around in a bad agency that was more concerned about MLM and recruiting and endless chains and all that nonsense. Before he decided to see, hey, the big agency is where it's at for him, and I'm going all in. So it's not about joining my agency per se, but it's about this mindset shift here. If you don't want to fail and you want the best chances of success, despite the odds against you, decide that you are committed and that you're going all in. Again, we all have heard this before. I've done nothing like earth-shattering here, but it bears repeating from somebody who's been there and who have seen others who have been there, but also gave in because mentally they don't believe that it's possible. So be fully committed, and it's going to take time, and don't be surprised if you experience a lot of heartache up to the point where you see success. The last thing I'll mention here is very important. In this business, for me, the income was like a hockey stick. And this, as I've discovered, is how many people are. If you think of a hockey stick on its side, you know how a hockey stick is shaped, right? Like if you think of it as plotted over time, the income kind of goes up a little bit, but over time, there's a point where it inflects and it goes compounded, right? Goes through the roof. That's how, in a sense, this business is. It's rare that everybody out the gate makes $100,000 in their first year. Some people do it. They do it in our agency, but it might take a year or two to learn these lessons, to make these mistakes, to get there. But don't quit. What I can tell you this is, if you can stick to this business long enough, what comes out on the back end is a lifestyle that's second to none, the ability to do something that helps people for real, and they get paid really, really well for it. And the people who stick with it, it takes a couple of years, and it's a amazing before and after, and what they're capable to do, and what the opportunity is. So Chris asked, and I'll add this in here. Thanks, Chris. What are the top couple of reasons for the high attrition rate? Number one, there are people in our business, mostly on the MLM side, that say everybody can do this successfully. That's a lie. This isn't for everybody. It's like saying, hey, come join the NBA. Everybody can be successful. No. Like, the NBA is an elite organization of the best in the world for basketball. It is not for everybody. Now, everybody can play basketball. Everybody can talk about insurance, but can you perform it at high levels? Some people just can't, and they're cajoled to do it because the MLM makes money in other ways besides convincing people to sell successfully. We'll talk about that more in a minute. That's probably just a mishiring is number one, because of how people approach recruiting agents is just not in the best interest. Other things, it's straight performance. To wake up unemployed every morning, to have a straight commission and have to perform and go find business is daunting for some people. You eventually get used to it. It took a couple of years for me because, if you just keep doing it, you have faith in things working out. But a lot of people just can't handle that. Also, just being a straight commission, it's like running your business. Like, you got to be self-disciplined. You got to be self-accountable. It's that full commitment thing we're talking about. And a lot of people can do that for a short period of time before they just struggle with it. And being focused and dialed in is another thing. Like, people get distracted by the shiny objects in the system. Well, final expenses sold to old poor people. I want to sell IUL plans and bank on yourself to rich, important people, and sell the big stuff, but there's people making all sorts of money selling, basic level products like final expense. But that distraction deters their income, because you can't be everything to everybody. You can't learn everything and offer everything. There's too much bandwidth. You only have a limited attention span. So things like this are things you either hear from me and trust, or you got to experience yourself, like I did, and had to screw up a few times to realize. So that does contribute to the attrition rates. Good question. Okay, so continuing on here. That's the takeaway there. If you're going to do this business part-time or full-time, this isn't like you got to only go in full-time 70 hours a week. It's more about the mindset, going all in, regardless of your schedule. Have that mindset. That will contribute in a dynamic way to your success. Number two on the list here, really assess yourself. If you're a new agent and you know better than the guy or gal who's been doing this successfully for years, or who's been running an agency for years, and you can't take constructive criticism, go away. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. Find another job. This profession has a funny way of ripping apart the self-delusion you have of yourself. Okay? Because I saw this on a Reddit post. Like, I peruse Reddit and some of these insurance boards, and I occasionally contribute some perspective. And one of the recent threads was something like, I'm getting ripped apart. People are screaming at me and they're so disrespectful. What did I do to deserve this? And I'm like, welcome to insurance, baby. Like, get used to it. This is the culling process. This is the process by which every single agent has to experience. And so going into this with this understanding is vitally important. If you aren't humble, meaning you're not full, if you're full of yourself, if you're not coachable, and you eschew, you don't want to be accountable, dude, this business is not for you. The irony of this is that a lot of you are running away from a job where you're managed, you're held accountable, you're shown your metrics, people make demands of you, and you hate it. But the irony is that you need to have that self-imposed on you or your agency to arise and raise yourself to a level of success that if you don't have it, you're not going to be as successful. Okay. So I'll give you a couple examples. I mean, there's so many examples of this. Like as you call on the phone, people are going to crush you. They're going to say the nastiest, meanest things to you. You wouldn't believe what people have said about me and about my wife, about my family. I mean, stuff that like is mind blowing. But people say that they don't know me. I have to understand that I can't take it offensively. They're objecting to my offer. They're not objecting to me. That how could they? They don't know who I am. So you have to develop these kind of mindsets about how do you deal with rejection? How do you deal with people not just not liking what you're talking about, but being as rude as you could possibly imagine? Because the value in being able to develop mindsets, do not let your ego get in the way and say, I'm not that person. I'm better than this, blah, 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 blah. To not let the ego get in the way, it allows you to stay with it and develop the thick skin and a proper perspective to be in here long term. The other thing that's important with ego is that it prevents you from being and receiving constructive criticism. This has been one of the most revealing things that we ever did in my agency. We had a period of time where if you could just buy the non-resident licenses and you could just show up, we would let you in. That was the biggest mistake we've ever made because Tim, he's like the Wizard of Oz at the big agency. He runs operations. He manages the salespeople. He helps them. He's almost like a father figure. And he really wants to help people who want to help themselves. And what we discovered is when we just let anybody in who didn't have this prerequisite of just some level of grit and toughness and ability to take constructive criticism, we had people flipping out. They were cursing Tim out for Tim calling him out and saying, hey, you can't do that if you want to be successful. They took it personally. They like were offended by it. And it's like, wait till you get on the phone and you got to deal with people cursing. Like you got to get used to some what's the word? Radical level of accountability. And it's not that you should expect to be berated. It's not that. You need to look at that as I'm receiving something of value to enhance my capability to be successful. And it even happens with top producers. We've had it with top producers where we've listened to their sales calls. Tim or I call them out and say, this isn't good. Fix it for your own benefit. You're going to make more money. And they resisted. We continued. And then all of a sudden they complied, fixed their script. And then guess what? The ego's gone and the money and the sales increases. Who would have figured? But the faster you can shut the brain and the ego off and all of the self-entitlement that you have, this delusion we all deal with on some level, the faster you're going to progress. But if you box yourself off and think you're above constructive criticism and the ability to be held accountable, you're going to die in this box of mediocrity and never get anywhere. That's part of the reason, shameless plug, our free lead program is so successful. People think, oh, the leads are free. It's not just that. It's because there's a system of accountability and there's a system of expectation that you will do the best you can. And we hold you accountable to it in a positive fashion that lifts up your ability to sell way more in most cases, if not all cases, than you would ever do on your own. So bottom line, we all have egos, okay? This isn't like me yelling at you and I'm Mr. Perfect. I'm not. I've dealt with my ego my entire life as a salesperson. But my point is, as a new agent getting into the business, the more that you can shut the ego off and focus on admitting you're responsible for whatever happens and being open to suggestions and improvements in the right environment where you can receive constructive criticism. Some places you won't. That's a whole nother subject. But in the right environment where you get that and you apply it, man, that is the pathway to accelerating your success as long as you take the constructive criticism and apply it. So don't be fencing. Okay. Number three, snake oil is everywhere. Okay. Snake oil. What's that? If you're not, probably for some Gen Z person, like, what's snake oil? That's a term that we use to call things that are a scam. In other words, in the life insurance business, mostly life, less so in the insurance as a whole, but it's out there everywhere. There's a lot of multi-level marketing operations that are more concerned about making money by selling you crap, like crap leads, or taking your book of business in the sense of your referrals and selling them themselves without giving you a cut, or possibly teaching you to recruit everybody with a pulse as opposed to how to sell everybody with a pulse, which is really the skill set you need to learn to make money. And they're more concerned about the stuff that doesn't actually make you money, but makes the guys and gals at the top of the pyramid money. Okay. So, in case you've been living under the rock, multi-level marketing comes from Herbalife, Amway. A lot of the people in the life insurance business originated in those business models. They sell this kind of, it's almost like this prosperity gospel of selling everybody, and it's a cult essentially. And the idea behind it is to convince you that the way to success and income is to just recruit a bunch of people. But invariably, most people fail out because they never learn the skills to pay the bills, which is, guess what? Sales, how to sell, right? And so there's huge failure rates. A lot of these MLM schemes are designed to sell something to them. Like there's one particular MLM that starts with an F. I'll let you fill in the blanks. They used to, they may not anymore, but for years they sold these aged junk leads that were pennies on the dollar to buy, for them to buy them. And then they resold them for like 10 or 11 bucks and told everybody they're the greatest leads ever when they were just like the worst, basically cold calling. And they made a fortune just off of reselling this garbage over and over. And there's just people all over the internet saying how much money they lost and how much debt they went into and how they were scammed. We don't want you to do this. We want you to avoid this scam. Yeah, I know. Okay, yeah, they still do, Jessica. Yeah, it's terrible. And you have to be aware of this. You have to avoid this because, again, that failure rate, new agents, 95 out of 100 of you are going to fail. Statistically, that's true. You should be caring about this. And a big reason that happens is because the agency you join is not aligned with what you really want. And only you know what you want. I don't want to put words in your mouth. What you should want is a system to sell successfully, not recruit successfully, or a system to buy stuff from somebody that really isn't any good. And that's what most MLM insurance agencies do. So what are the takeaways here? So just got done interviewing Scott. He's a brand new agent with us. He wrote 45,000 in his first full month of business with us, which is just incredible. Great first year income, great first year production, first month production. What he said is funny. He said, Dave, I did exactly what you said. Excuse me, losing my voice. I did 11 interviews with agencies. I interviewed them. I did my due diligence. I took my time to find the best agency because of what you say and teach about the failure rates that go on and on and on. It's ever since I've been around 2011. He took that seriously. Incidentally, ended up with us, but didn't have to. Maybe there's other agencies that work well. But the point is that you have to slow down and not get too excited about selling insurance. Okay? Like, it might not be all it's made out to be. In fact, a lot of these MLM cult leaders are the best salespeople. Like, they know what to tell you to be excited. They're experts at it. Okay? So you need to take a step back. And that includes questioning what I'm saying. I'm not leaving myself out of here. Question what I say. Is what I'm talking about selling my opportunity a good deal? It may not be for you. You alone have to make that determination. And you need to slow the roll down, do your due diligence, ask for references of top producers to determine if truly what is said lives up to the reality. Okay? Again, that's another one of those things like the mindset issue that if you just deploy what I'm talking about here, people, you'll avoid a ton of heartache. Because the irony is, as you start to interview them and you start to ask them these things that we teach, are you an MLM? Do you recruit? How does recruiting work? What if I just want to sell? Why should I work with you over others? Like, if you read between the lines, they'll probably start pushing back, getting offended, and not want to, and you'll be able to immediately tell because of their reaction to your questions. They'll push you away because they're like, oh, this guy or gal gets it. And they don't want somebody like that. So just by the process of doing due diligence, you can overcome a lot of these problems. Okay. Number 4 on the list here, assess your appetite for risk. Okay. So we talked about going all in. And I mean all in from a mindset standpoint, but that doesn't necessarily mean all in with your life savings. It may not be the most judicious form of risk taking for you. You may be like me, you got a family, you got mouths to feed, you got expectations like a mortgage to pay. And you need to take that in logical, sober consideration before you pull the trigger and join an agency. So here's a couple of examples. The most common issue here has to do with the amount of time that you invest. Again, fully committed, of course. Is it part-time or full-time? And it also has to do with, do you get your leads for free or do you get them and pay for them? Here's my experience here. First of all, part-timers, I started part-time. I had some level of success. You can be successful part-time, but the success rates are lower. We do accept part-timers at the DIG agency, by the way, in case you're wondering, because somebody out there is asking. But we don't say, we recommend 15 to 20 hours minimum part-time. It's better, your chances of success are better, and your risk, therefore, is going to be lower if you're all in. And there is a correlation between the amount of time that you put on and invest in a thing and the amount of success you get out of it. To me, that was exciting because I was like, at that time in my life, I was like, I could do this 70, 80 hours a week. And I knew, and it was proven after experience, that the more time I did, the more sales I made. And there's strength and safety in numbers. Okay. So again, lower your risk, do it more. Hopefully that makes sense. The other thing is leads. We used to accept agents for years, ever since I started in 13 recruiting agents, to exclusively buy leads. We've since then specialized in developing a free lead program for remote final expense telesales. And we have stopped recruiting agents buying leads. And the big reason why is that agents who buy leads largely cannot handle the week-to-week tumult, stress that comes from risking your money at the tune of $1,000 plus every week. The problem with that is that your money is emotional, and you start at negative 1,000 every week. You may not make any sales, and that is going to impact your decision-making on buying leads the following week. You may have just had a bad week, and then the next week could be great. But what a lot of agents do, and again, I know because I've done this for years recruiting this way, is they stop buying the good leads. They go to the crappy leads because they're a cheaper price. Then they don't get results that way. And then they start just upending the whole system because they weren't disciplined in their emotional management. And instead of the years I've gone through trying to teach agents to do this, what we've discovered through the free lead system is if you just take away the risk and just have the agent focus on leads, it lowers the financial risk because you start at zero every week. And the opportunity actually is higher. Agents make more money in our free lead program than they ever did as brokers. Why? Because they just have to sell. They don't have to go out there and figure out what leads work or figure out how marketing works. They just come in and sell, sell, sell. And for 95% of you out there, you're probably going to get better results, even at a lower contract, so the agency can justify buying the leads, than you ever would buying your own leads at a higher commission. If it would have worked the other way around, which, a broker model, we call it, where the commission's higher and you have to buy leads, I would be doing more of that. But we've eliminated that because the success for the agents who understand that far outweighs, and the money they make far outweighs than what a broker does. So my point is, when it comes to assessing that, even if you can afford the leads, think twice. Are you really do you have a history of managing money in a business for years on end, spending on marketing? If you don't, you might be better off just starting on a free lead program where you'd never have to worry about that, because worrying how to sell successfully will naturally take all of your time. But worrying about marketing on top of selling is a dissemination of your focus, and you're going to be less effective at both. Better to do one thing versus both. And that's the last thing I'll mention here. I'm a big advocate of product type. I think it's better for an agent to start with a simple product that's one call close focused, that doesn't require a lot of technical know-how. To me, final expense is perfect for that. But to an extent, IULs are good. They're a little bit more complicated. Certainly mortgage protection, term sales are really good that fill that bill. Don't get too elaborate with your first product. And I do think it's better to have one product you focus on versus a whole collection of products that you're trying to master and know. Again, dissemination of focus means you're not going to be as knowledgeable, your knowledge isn't as deep, and you're going to lose sales because you just don't have the aptitude necessary to sell in all sorts of unique and different situations. So yes, bottom line here, appetite for risk. Take this seriously as a new agent getting into the business. What really can you afford? My advice is take the high opportunity opportunities with minimal to no risk to you. I mean, there's always risk, the risk of your time. It may not work out, but minimal financial risks. That's just a better way to get started, to learn at least before you think about taking the next step, if there is one. And the last thing I want to talk about, and if you guys have questions, you want to talk about anything in the video here, I know some of you put some questions down. I'll get to them in a minute. If you have any other questions about our topic today, throw them in the chat. The last point here, what every new life insurance agent needs to know, is that the money follows putting clients first always. Guys, simple cheat code for new insurance agents. Just do that. Just do your clients right. Do what's in their best interest. Treat them like your mom, okay? How would you sell a policy to your mom? What would you say to them? What products would you select? Think like that, and what you'll find is that you will sell a lot of people, they'll be appreciative, and the money will follow. If you put money first above clients and their welfare, you're going to fail. You're going to be a fraudster. You're going to get caught, have license terminated, and thrown in jail. Worst case scenario. Or you're going to be wrapped up in the wrong things, wrapped up in the money, not how can I persuade somebody in the right way that doing business with me today immediately is in their best interest. Work on what matters most. And that's what can I do to help and serve my clients, no matter what it is that you sell. So don't product push over budget conscientiousness. So again, look, if somebody can't afford it, believe them. All right. Sell them something that they'll keep. Because again, there's nothing more shameful than having a product and then dropping it because it's too expensive and then dying. You want to sell this because in that time of disaster, of travesty, when a loved one dies, you want to be the person that helped that person in a way that nobody else did, because you sold them a policy that was best fit for them and was affordable, and they kept it. And it came to life right when they needed it to protect the family. So do that, and the money will follow. Doing right in this business can make you rich, in other words. Okay. So long story short, what does every single new life insurance agent must know to be successful and avoid failure? Number one, be committed. Go all in. That's the biggest takeaway of today. Number two, don't let your ego get in the way of success. Work on avoiding the temptations that follow from having thin skin. You need to have resilience and grit to deal with the public on a day-to-day basis, because who knows who's on the other end of that phone line. You've got to have the right mindset to overcome the challenges that come with it. Number three, beware the snake oil MLM agencies. Don't jump in bed with the first agency that propositions you. Slow things down. Do your due diligence. Do your interviews. Ask for references. The good agents will follow with all that. Or good agencies will help you with all of that. They don't mind because they know that's good. They know they got somebody serious who could be successful. There's nothing wrong with doing any of that. Number four, assess your appetite for risk. Don't blow your life savings. You don't have to anymore. There are free lead programs that can help you get started. You don't have to be full-time, but you can be fully committed on a part-time schedule before you go full-time. Okay? Part of this business is just sticking with it long enough to be successful. Okay? As you work out what not to do and work out what to do. And then last but not least, always keep the client's welfare in mind first and foremost. Sell to that, and the money issues you have will not be an issue anymore. So guys, if you enjoyed today's broadcast or watching this on YouTube, go to daviddufour.com if you want to learn more about the Dig Agency. We specialize in remote life insurance sales, predominantly final expense, with us providing a unique proprietary lead and dialing system that gets more presentations and higher quality leads than any other remote agency. daviddufour.com is where to go. Check out the videos for more information and how to apply. I'm going to give you guys the opportunity if you want to come on the mic now to ask questions. So if you wanted to raise your hand and ask yours truly some questions about anything insurance or sales marketing related, you're welcome to do that, or unmute yourself. I'll call on you. Otherwise, I'm going to scroll back up here and start with some questions that I saw. Ethan, hey Ethan, when working the Freely program, what are your mandatory performance standards for part-time agents versus full-time agents? So it just depends. It's kind of a moving target for us, right? We have some stats that we've recently, we have a success ratio stat that measures the amount of calls versus the amount of sales that they make, right? And there are agents that their success rate, they could be good agents, but one agent has a success ratio that's double versus the other, right? It's crazy how that works, but sometimes it's like that. So there's not a hard and fast number because as a newer agent, we understand you're newer. When you get on the phone in that first week, you need to be making sales. Like we have plenty of examples of agents making sales right away. This isn't a complicated business. And if you trained and you spent your time, like you should be on the road to making some sales. But what we want to see is results, and we want to see sales within the expected success ratio guideline. I'm not sure exactly where the numbers are. Like if you do X amount of calls, you're fired, or you do Y amount of calls, we let you go. I'm not sure exactly where those numbers are now, but what I can say is this: like if you're making sales in your first week and you're coachable and you're reviewing your sales calls, you're sticking to it, and you're implementing the suggestions made, you're not going anywhere. Okay. Okay. I plan to go full time as soon as possible. That's fine. How long do you recommend a new agent to be in business before hiring an appointment setter? So this is if you're face to face. If you're selling over the phone, you don't need an appointment setter. They won't pick up the phone. Automations via text or calendar bookings take care of preset appointments. So you don't need somebody doing that for you. Now, if you're selling face to face, it's just really a matter of opinion. I always had an appointment setter minus a few months as a face to face agent from 2011 to 2017. I just didn't like making phone calls. I don't really like the phone. It's kind of funny. I like being in front of people. As an agent, at least, I wanted to be in front of people because that's where the magic happened. I could control a room pretty well. I could do a great presentation. And I didn't want to take the time to get on the phone to set the appointments, and I could hire somebody at a reasonable rate to do the work for me. So I've always had an appointment setter because in my mind, I could do more presentations. And that was true. I was doing 35 to 40 presentations a week face to face and about like 4 or 5 days a week. So yeah, the short answer is do it now if you really want to have somebody do appointment setting. What do you offer? What do you offer recommendation or system finding an efficient employee to hire? Upwork.com. You can find all sorts of appointment setters, but again, if you're doing remote sales, it's unnecessary. EOforless.com, iPad. That's where you can buy reasonably priced errors emission insurance. I'm assuming the best time to start calling is around 4 or 5. The best time to call is at 8 a.m. Eastern. And the best last time to call is at 12 p.m. or 12 a.m. Eastern. Probably knowing our numbers, there's a ton of sales made early morning to like mid-afternoon, and then again early evening to about 11 o'clock at night Eastern. Okay. We work as telesales agents multiple time zones. So we have the luxury of starting really early or working really late, depending on the time zones our leads are in. So, but don't overthink it. Just get on the phone, accept calls, start dialing. You're going to find people in all walks of life ready to buy if you just put the work in. That's what's most important. If so, being in California, I can start calling East Coast leads. Sure, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. That's completely fine. You could start at 2 Central, or I said 2 Pacific, and then it's like 5 Eastern. You're welcome, Denisha. How many calls per day are you looking for? As many as humanly possible, Fred. It's interesting, in our system, our agents don't make calls. Our system does the call. You just wait till we have our system brings you a person, and it dynamically assigns that person to the next ready agent. I think our average it varies day to day, but it's common to not wait any longer than a minute to 2 minutes before the next call is ready to be taken. It's crazy. Like our ability to get people on the phone so there's no dead time is amazing. So there's so many live transfer companies out there where the calls come to you. You have to wait 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes before the next one comes in. Hey, Katerina, excuse me. As a good goal to set, how long should part-timers give themselves to see if this is the right field for them or not? You should know within your first month or two if this business model or this niche is right for you. If it's not, leave, do something else. But like, for example, if you sold final expense with us, yeah, if you do your training right and you're taking leads, you're doing sales, you should be making sales pretty quickly. And you're either going to be enthused by that or not. Usually people are enthused, like, yeah, I made money. I like it. When they don't make money, they don't like it, right? So it happens pretty quick. But some people, it's rare. They just don't like the business model and then quit because of that. But largely, a couple of weeks to a month is it. Find out if it's right. But you may also find, Katarina, maybe Medicare is better. Maybe term insurance is better. Like sometimes it's a product issue and the market surrounding. Like some people don't like selling old people. That's final expense. Do better with younger people. So that's something to consider too. We don't have appointment setter, so I won't worry about answering that. What systems did you have in place for an appointment setter? Jessica, I just had oh man, I've had Michelle. Michelle used to set appointments for me. I hired her in 13 or 14 from Upwork, and she's still in business doing appointment setting. I don't think she does it for anybody in our team. But yeah, I mean, it was just, hey, are you an experienced appointment setter? Yeah. Okay, cool. Can you call like a couple hours a day to set appointments for the following day? Sure. Okay, cool. I'll pay you this much. 15 or 20 bucks an hour. It's kind of what I would recommend. That's well worth it. If I spent $200 a week to get 10, 15 preset face-to-face appointments, that maybe I would only get like 7 or 5 because I got a door knock. I can't call. That's worth it. Because I think I'd make a sale out of the extra ones. You shouldn't go in with a plan B. Yeah. Like mentally, that's the rub. Like if you go in with like, well, if this fails, I'm gonna do something else. Like you'll find a way to make it fail because you're not fully committed. It's part of the reason why it's difficult to recruit retired people because Uncle Sugar's paying them. They got money coming in. They aren't that worried. Whereas if you take somebody who's, like if they don't make money, they don't make the rent, and they better get going. Totally different mindset. They're forced to not have a plan B. Like there's actually power in being under that kind of stress with the right mindset. Most people will probably disagree with me, but pressure makes diamonds. Can we sell term or Medicare insurance to the people we want to talk to on the purchase that one? No. No. Reason we don't do that is because it's the dissemination of focus, Katarina, and it just doesn't translate into more money. It translates into less money. You want to do one thing extremely well if you want to have success in this business. Chris says, I asked you this once before, but is a company car still a no? No. But I'm more than happy to pay you a lot of money for all the sales you make to buy your own company and to occasionally let them drive. So get to work. All right. Deal. Good. See? That's right. Crossing the aisle. Bipartisan support. Right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you got any more questions, feel free to throw them out. Otherwise, I'm going to be doing my little wrap up here. So again, thank you all for joining. Hope you learned something today, got some extreme value out of today's presentation on what new agents need to know to be successful. Again, if you're watching this live on Insurance Sales Success, davidduford.com is my site. If you want more information on joining my agency, come to a Q&A call, watch the FAQ videos, watch case study videos. Lots of good stuff to see there. iPad, eoforless.com. Let me type it out for you. Where I pop off here, eoforless.com. Just go there. What carriers do you use? We use American Amicable, SBLI, Sika, Mutual of Omaha, AIG, Guaranteed Issue, Trinity Family Benefit. That's about 90% of our business. So thank you, Jessica. Happy birthday to me, 40 years old. I feel great. I don't know if it can get any worse. All right. Thank you guys for being here. And we'll be back in oh, by the way, please come back. Please come back to Thursday, Friday. I'll announce it here soon. Johnny Nitafan, who runs a YouTube channel, great guy, trained a lot of successful telesales reps. They do brokering. They have agents buy leads. He's going to do his breakdown on script training, different than what ours is, but he's going to do it live on Insurance Sales Success Friday at 3. This is going to put the announcement out here in a little bit. So keep your eyes popped open for that. So that's it. I'm new with DeFord, but I was not told to get, those come later. They're not necessary. Trinity, SBI, American AM, yeah, you're good. You got everything you need. Get AIG if you haven't. That would be the only other one. Think. Ask Tim just to make sure. Thanks, Raul. All right, y'all. Thanks for being here. See y'all next time.